This is Libertarian Republic, talking to Nick Polce, who's running for Paul Ryan's current seat.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking with me.
Yeah, first district in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Given some of the events I've seen you at, would you consider yourself a RLC style, like, Liberty Republican?
Yeah, so I would consider myself a constitutional conservative. Yeah, but the Constitution lays out the role of the federal government, and then outside of that, everything should be delegated down to the state and the local level.
Agreed. When the federal government funds itself through debt or money creation, which groups of citizens are taxed the most?
Well, a couple really. First of all, it hurts savers because we have such a when we're constantly borrowing. The incentive on the federal government side is to keep interest rates low because it has a massive amount of debt. So interest rates being kept low hurts savers. One, two, it hurts people on fixed incomes, much like the retirement community on fixed incomes. And then when we get into the money printing and the money creation, that hurts those that don't have a lot of assets. Whereas if you have assets, let's say you own property or you own stocks or you own oil or natural gas, whatever those asset classes are, when you're printing a lot of money, that's how you are able to maintain your wealth. If you don't have assets, if you're just in cash or you don't have a lot of income, then it hurts you as well.
The Cantillon effect. You've said America should maintain, speaking of Social Security, you've said America should maintain its commitment to those who have paid into Social Security. You also say Social Security should be voluntary. If both things are true, how do you fund the difference or even the transition?
Yeah, that's a good point. So the problem we face is for the last several decades, our political class, and one of the big reasons why I'm running is because there's a myth that the political class is indispensable to the government of this country. So in particular, the way Social Security works is that money comes in, it goes to fund the current pensioners or those on disability, and then the rest of that money that's not sent out to Social Security recipients is then pushed into the general revenue and spent. People have, for decades, had money taken out of paychecks, and then now they're expecting to receive something to get that back when they retire. So you can't just throw that away. At the same time, we have to recognize that we don't want to keep it mandatory. If you and I go to mid-30s-ish, why can't we just say, hey, I've had enough, I paid into it, I totally forfeit any future claims on Social Security, and let me prepare for my own future. So how do you do that? How do you round that square? Yeah, I think at this point you have to have a bridge, if you will. Since you've already made these commitments, you have to have a breakout fee. We'll call it 40 or 50 years old. 50 and older, and you want to continue to maintain Social Security, then you keep it. If you're 50 or less and you want to move out of it, and you voluntarily forfeit all the money that you put into it, and you're free to create your own life going forward and not have that 12.5% taken out of your paycheck every month. But there's got to be that bridge. And we can't just stop it all of a sudden because there's so many people that are counting.
Great. You've had 8 deployments over 11 years of military service. You've been a Green Beret.
Yes.
On behalf of the Libertarian Republic, I'd like to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
However, you claim our military protects our freedom and our way of life. Are there times that our military, when given the wrong mission, does the exact opposite?
Sometimes, well, that's a good question. You can definitely make mistakes made by that foreign policy over the last several decades, which may have made us less safe because of blowback or because of unintended consequences. So anytime that you deploy the military, there's the potential exists that unintended consequences happen. If you look at Iraq as an example, when they went in and they did what we did in Iraq, the mission started to change. And then you saw an influence of Iranian push coming across the border, which resulted in an increase of the Sunni tribes, which was also supported or loosely supported by what became Al-Qaeda in Iraq, right? Then that kind of ballooned into what is now ISIS, or what was ISIS before the Trump administration came in and destroyed them. So anytime we go in and we take action, there's the unintended consequences potentially can lead to additional action down the road.
Right. You've talked about abolishing the Department of Homeland Security before. You'll find no argument for me on that front, but to many people that may seem extreme, as young as the department is. Can you justify that call to those who may assume that it's necessary?
Yeah, so we talk a lot. That comes back into the original discussion that I get a lot of questions on it. I say we have to cut spending. Our spending is we're spending way too much money. And then I immediately get hit with either people that want to know or what specifically would you cut? And I say we have to start at the discretionary side of the house, which gets us back to our Constitution and what's outlined for the role of the federal government. And if it's not outlined, then it's that back at the state and local level. So what was the Department of Homeland Security? What is its history? Its history was it came out of a failure of 9/11. 9/11 happened, which was government failure. 9/11 was government failure, and so the result of 9/11 was we created the Department of Homeland Security. Government failure does not justify increase in government, and so when I talk about walking back or removing the Department of Homeland Security, that's what I'm talking about. Is that now look at how we operate in the airports. You have all kinds of procedures in place, which are body frisking, which are things that would violate privacy that we've given up because we believe that it makes us safer. And if you talk specifically about the walking through the X-ray tubes, why did that come about? Well, that came about because of the underwear bomber that came out of Niger, I believe. Well, Niger doesn't have those X-ray machines.
Right.
So how is it that putting those X-ray machines in the United States is going to prevent another underwear bomber? It doesn't happen. So when I talk about getting rid of the Department of Homeland Security, with some of the things that have been pushed under there, we can push them back out to the other departments, like Secret Service can go back to the Department of Treasury. ICE and INS we can remove out of DHS as well. Because it ultimately comes back to government failure does not mean that you have new government.
Right. Much of your service was in Africa. Is there any country that AFRICOM currently operates in that you believe it should be meddling in?
So we did about half my trips with Africa, right? Half my trips with other Middle Eastern countries. So sitting against the question is,
are there any countries that AFRICOM is currently operating in that you believe it should be operating in?
Oh, should.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the ways and one of the reasons that we have this special operations community is to help with setting up security for individual countries, so that they can protect themselves instead of constantly having to look to outside entities, whether it's the European Union, whether it's UN, or whether it's the United States. So in that mission, there are areas where you have hotbeds of extremism, you have hotbeds of terrorism, which if that country reaches out to the United States to help build their security force to help with that, then I think that's a mission for the special operations unit. It should be limited and it should be direct, and then we should look at removing instead of going and staying in perpetuity. Because again, it comes back to funding. We are so much in debt right now, $21 trillion in debt, and our Department of Defense is on the discretionary side of the house the largest.
The largest category of spending.
Right, spending. There you go. Largest category of spending on the discretionary side of the house. So we have to balance the two. So if I had to pick a specific country, try to think which specific country off the top of my head. The East African Peninsula has had an increase in pirate activity over the last couple of years, and there's the shipping lanes that run off of that eastern coast, and they run up through the
Horn of Africa.
Horn of Africa, and then up through the Suez Canal.
Strait of Hormuz.
Strait of Hormuz, right? So I think those areas, if we're going to put people in place and we're going to deploy to train security-wise, it makes sense to do it there because of the massive amount of commerce that moves to that area.
There's one thing to be training troops, but do you believe the president has the constitutional authority to conduct acts of war, such as missile strikes, however limited they are, in countries that Congress has not declared war in, absent an attack on this country or an imminent threat to it?
Yeah, so that's the constitutional discussion that's been going on for decades of what role the president has versus what role Congress has, and whether it's declared war or non-declared war. So as I understand the Constitution, the president has the ability to protect national security interests of the United States and deploy troops and deploy missiles and do what he needs to do to protect the country without having to go to Congress and then have 535 generals talk back and forth, right? But for an extended engagement, we have to get a declaration where we have to get authorization from Congress to be able to keep soldiers on the field for an extended period of time.
What's wrong with the VA and how do we fix it?
So the VA, there's two larger problems with the VA. The first has to do with disability claims, and the second has to do with actual care. So on the disability claim, this is what that means. So if I have a service-related injury, whatever, airborne, jumping out of planes or something, I have to get that paperwork done and documented when I'm on active duty. Because if I wait till I get off active duty and then start to work through the process of, oh, you know, my elbow hurt, you know, it's when I jumped out of a plane and smashed it on a tree 5 years ago. It's very difficult to show that paper trail to be able to put that claim in. And so one of the ways to fix that is, when you're on active duty, to be able to document your paperwork. But the flip side of that, though, is we have this warrior ethos on active duty where because you're in the military, because you have that alpha male personality, you don't want to be documenting your paperwork. You don't want to be injured. And you because you're letting your buddies down, you're letting your team down, so you constantly want to get back in the fight. Nah, this injury's fine, right? So that is one of the problems with the disability backlog that you hear a lot about, is trying to match the injury from active duty with 6, 8, 10 years or whatever down the road, and trying to follow. How you fix that? That's difficult because of that warrior ethos of not wanting to be separated from the team. So from a leadership standpoint, you just have to stay on your men and your women to tell them, hey, if you're injured, make sure you document this stuff, because over time, if you have deterioration in whatever the injury is, may want to get a bit of claim down the VA 5, 10 years down the road. The second side of this is the actual care. And on the care side of the house, the VA is a bureaucracy. There's no other way to get around it. And so as a bureaucracies don't solve problems, they follow rules. Because the incentive model built into a bureaucracy is not to necessarily be creative, not to necessarily try and solve a lot of problems, because there's no reward for that. There's a reward for staying in your lane and just following the rules, because you can't get in trouble for it. So because of that incentive model on the bureaucracy side of the house, we have to increase freedom. We have to increase access to care for our veterans, not put more controls in place, not create a larger, bloated bureaucracy. Those are the two larger challenges I see, and those are the larger overview of how you begin to fix that, to get the care that the guys and girls need.
Okay. McConnell has recently announced his intention to attach an amendment to this year's Farm Bill to remove hemp from the umbrella of cannabis on the drug enforcement schedule, building on a Massey's Farm Bill amendment a few years back that gave states a limited positive opt-out. Is he right on this? And were you in Congress, would you vote to remove industrial hemp from the drug enforcement schedule?
Yeah. So so industrial hemp, yes. So the larger, we're talking about, because hemp doesn't have the THTC component. It's used to.
You have to smoke a joint the size of a tree trunk. Technically
right,
it does,
right. So,
but not enough to matter.
Right, so that's the difference between hemp and cannabis. Is cannabis has the actual content.
Yeah,
it's
THC content. I think Massey's bill, it's 0.3 or 0.4%, something that's not going to be very effective as a drug.
Right. So I haven't seen that amendment, but based off of the back and forth here, that would be something I would support, because if you look at the history of why hemp was banned, it was a conflict between the paper industry and the hemp industry way back in 1800s, I think. And so...
Well, we were using it as late as World War II.
Was it World War II? Oh, okay. Sorry, much later than that. But there was a conflict between the paper interest and you had the hemp interest. And then eventually what won out was hemp was essentially criminalized in a way, and then now we just had paper. So absolutely, I would agree with allowing that industry to come back and create American jobs and create value for customers.
Why did you move to Wisconsin, and how do you answer the accusation some have leveled that you're carpetbagging?
So So we moved to Wisconsin for 2 reasons. The first one is we were looking for a place to raise our son. We were living in Texas at the time. My little man was born at the end of 2016.
Oh, we're in Texas.
Pflugerville.
Okay.
Yeah, just north of Austin.
Yeah.
And so when he came, he changed my wife and I's lives, and we started looking at the future. And I wanted to take action. I wanted to get involved in politics because I thought there was a lack of leadership. We were doing the same things over and over again, and we weren't taking action to put American interests first. And so when we made that decision, like it's time to go, do this. Where can we take the best action? What fits with our values? The values that I grew up on, my wife grew up on. Where does that matter? Or where does it match? And then if it does match, is that area that we can get involved with politics and get into the fight? And so this was Wisconsin. That's why we chose Wisconsin. I get the question a lot of times, well, why didn't you run for office in Texas? If you want to make change, you don't nibble around the edge. You don't run for a backbencher, if you will, for lack of a better word. It's not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not how I look at it. You got to go after leadership. And so look at the leaders. Who's leading the house? Who's making the decisions that is making our country worse off? Who's putting us farther in debt? Who's continuing to increase healthcare costs? Who's continuing to create these retirement crises? Who's continuing to not put American workers first by not fixing the immigration system? Who's continuing to not put Americans first by continuing to use these managed trade agreements like NAFTA, CAFT, trying to push the TPP? Who is that? Well, everything that comes out of Congress comes out of leadership, whether it's in the Senate or the House. And so we looked around and came up here and visited and said, is this an area where we can raise our son? It's an area that aligns with our values. Yes, this is how I grew up, the values that I grew up on. Fits here. We like the area. We feel safe here. My wife likes it. So we chose Wisconsin. Now, to your point about the carpetbagger label, hey, that's something I have to earn. I have to justify, and I have to let people know why we're running, what it is that we're doing, and we're not just seeking a political opportunity. So I'll answer to a couple different ways. First of all, choosing to run against the sitting Speaker of the House is not a political opportunity. And in the lexicon of a carpetbagger was someone that came
to make it easier for themselves rather than harder.
Sensed the political opportunity. And so we kicked off our campaign in November of 2017. And we've been crisscrossing the district ever since, pitching our vision of freedom, liberty, why it is that putting me and our campaign in office will benefit the residents here in the 1st District and then Americans across the country. And so we didn't wait till Paul Ryan left to then jump into the political world. The second part of that is when I look at our country, it's American values that unite us. I didn't have any control over where I was born. I was blessed, absolutely blessed to grow up in a family that loved me and built a lifestyle for us and created and taught us to respect the country, taught us to respect God, taught us to respect the family. Those true American values. I wasn't born there. I can't control that. What we can control is where we choose to live. My wife and I, we choose to kill them. And the last part of it is, I deployed 8 times. And when I deployed overseas 8 times, I didn't do it with a Wisconsin flag or a Texas flag. It was an American flag on my shoulder. And it's those American values that unite us. And yes, we have different pockets and that's the good thing about the country. We have different history in different parts of the country. In Texas, you have a certain history. In Wisconsin, you have a certain history. It's America that unites us, and so those are ways that I look at that label, and I know why we're running. We're doing it for the right reasons, and I believe we'll be successful.
There's a lot of problems. I got some stuff Paul Ryan's done with me, especially with the omnibus and things like that. However, how would you rate him compared to other speakers of the House of our lifetime, if that's the standard?
Well, of our lifetime, I got to go back and look at. We just take the last 20 years or even 30 years. So what's happened in that time? Here's what I see. You see that the federal government continues to grow. You see the administrative state continue to grow. You see our freedom and our liberty continue to shrink. You see the debt and our spending continue to grow. You see our healthcare costs continue to grow. You see our trade, more and more jobs are being outsourced, if you will, because of our patchwork immigration system. And it just becomes to the point where we just had enough. Right? We just had enough of that same old status quo. And I just see him as the most recent speaker as a continuation of speakers that are not putting the American people first and not fulfilling their duty. And remember, the number one position of role of a leader is to put the interests of those that you're supposed to be serving in front of your own. And for decades in Washington, this is not just in the Speaker of the House position, this is in Congress writ large, is for the majority of people that are not doing it. And we know that they're not doing that because of the decisions that they're making.
Right. All right, end with the most important question, of the interview. Favorite Star Wars movie?
Oh, definitely the Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi?
Return of the Jedi.
It's Nicholson. He said The Empire Strikes Back. I figure that's probably a good way to like and stuff.
Yeah, Return of the Jedi is like the underdog. That the people rising up, recognizing they have the power, and snap it back against the overreaching Death Star of the Empire.
I can't trust anyone who doesn't pick a movie out of the original trilogy. That's my age, at least. So that's good. Yeah.
It went downhill after that. Star Wars after that went downhill.
I kind of liked Rogue One. I thought that was pretty decent.
Which one was that one? I don't remember that one.
It's the one where everybody dies.
Oh,
spoiler alert.
Oh, okay.
But thanks for taking the time.
Take care. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.